Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope we're having a wonderful start to this day, and hopefully we had a wonderful week because things are going to start getting a little bit more active today in the severe weather department, and that will likely continue into tomorrow and Tuesday, and maybe even after that. But I really think overnight Monday into Tuesday out throughout much of the central part of the country is when this severe weather event is really going to kind of hit its maximum, if you will. And then again, I think it'll linger throughout much of the week, just probably at lesser intensities and for not maybe such a widespread area, but we'll talk about that in today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know what you're seeing out in your neck of the woods, on this Sunday morning. Now, with that said, I do have somewhere to be, which I know I say all the time, but I promise it's true, so let's go ahead and start talking here. Now, taking a look at our current watches, warnings, and advisories, again, relatively quiet in terms of, I guess, super severe weather, but we do have a couple areas of note to kind of look at here. So one over the Carolinas here, and this is a special weather statement for a lot of folks here, kind of from the Raleigh area into much of the other parts of the Carolinas, and this is for fire danger, which I just had to pull up on the spot because, quite honestly, I forgot to check before this, but that's what it's for. So again, that does make sense. Again, still a tad windy out here, still some pretty dry air as well for a lot of folks. Again, that includes Raleigh, Norfolk, Richmond, back towards Blacksburg, and even back down towards the Fayetteville area. So if you are burning anything today, definitely make sure you're taking all precautions, and again, if you can avoid it, just don't burn anything at all. And it's going to be the same story up here into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and then also back into the kind of southwestern part of the country from Texas through New Mexico and into western Kansas and the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, as well as kind of much of eastern Colorado there. So again, if you don't have to burn anything, do your best not to over really the next couple of days until this front kind of swings on through and some of that moisture helps to kind of, I guess, get rid of some of that dry air. Now, taking a look at radar imagery, again, two key areas that we're watching on radar this morning. One over the northeast, where we do have a severe weather threat this afternoon. In fact, a pretty large one for northeast standards. And then another area back into California. Now, both of these are going to produce severe weather. It's just a matter of when and where. The one in the northeast is likely going to start this afternoon with a nice band of pretty strong storms here from New York State all the way back down towards Ohio, even into northern New Jersey and through much of Pennsylvania. And that other storm system likely to bring severe weather on kind of multiple days, one being Monday night into kind of that circled area on your map, and then again on Tuesday in that second circle, and even after that on Wednesday potentially again. So multiple days of severe weather on the horizon. The Storm Prediction Center has the map lined up from today all the way through Wednesday. So again, just know kind of that average April pattern here of severe weather becoming more and more active, and will continue to be that way here for the foreseeable future. Now, satellite imagery just kind of shows what we just saw on radar in a different form. Again, one blob here, another blob here. Both of those, as I mentioned, are going to cause that severe weather threat. But the good news is everywhere in between actually in kind of a nice little stretch of weather. So clear skies over much of the heart of the country, back down through the Ohio River Valley and even into the southeastern United States. So we'll definitely take that silver lining here with that severe weather that we are dealing with. All right, high temperatures today, well, it's going to start feeling a lot more like summer and a lot less like spring here throughout much of the early part of this week ahead of that next storm system, as a lot of that southern moisture gets pulled northward. That ridge that is in place continues to build over much of the eastern half of the country, and today, many of us are going to get into the 80s, as far north as the Ohio River Valley. I'm talking 90s, even back out towards Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. So, again, just very warm weather. The kind of only two exceptions will be into kind of interior New England, where we're on the cold side of that low pressure that's going to bring severe weather, and then kind of here into California, where again that upper level low is actually bringing some mountain snow through the Sierra Nevadas and into northern California. But other than that, again, very warm, above average temperatures for everyone else in the country. All right, as I mentioned, and let's see if I actually have the right map. There we go, just had them out of order. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we do have a severe weather threat today, so let's go ahead and talk about it. In fact, we have an enhanced risk up for a lot of folks from southeastern Ohio through really the heart of Pennsylvania, and this is a wind-driven enhanced risk. What that means is, again, this is a level 3 out of 5 in terms of severity, and they are most confident in putting that level 3 out of 5 due to the wind threat. Again, very confident we're going to see very strong straight line winds today. today. In fact, there we go, 30% chance of seeing damaging winds within 25-mile radius for places like Harrisburg State College, back up near the Scranton area, and even back down towards Pittsburgh. Again, could see some of those strong winds. But that won't be the only threat. We also have a small threat for hail, 15% chance of damaging hail within a 25-mile radius, again through Pittsburgh and into eastern Ohio as well, and even into the northern peninsula of West Virginia there. Now, tornado threat, also not zero today. In fact, we have a 5% chance of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius, again in that brown shaded color. And I know a lot of you folks in this area kind of got robbed a little bit by the Storm Prediction Center earlier this week on Tuesday, where, again, you had that enhanced risk and not much happened. I don't want you to let your guard down today because, to be quite honest, on Tuesday, I was quite surprised they had that enhanced risk. Today, I'm very well aligned with this ideology of thinking, we're going to have some strong storms. And, again, a couple could produce tornadoes, but tornadoes or no tornadoes, strong winds absolutely going to be a concern this afternoon. So let's go ahead and break it down a little bit for you. Now I'm going to show you a couple models here. We'll start with our NAM. Is that what we're looking at here? Let's see. Yeah, the NAM, sorry. I didn't know if this was the NAM or the High Resolution Rapid Refresh, but I'll show you that model next. So again, the NAM for this afternoon, getting into about 3 o'clock this afternoon. You might be wondering, well, where are these strong storms? Still dealing with some scattered showers and kind of a cold rain in upstate New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. But notice, here's that low pressure on kind of the southern side of this. We're going to start getting some storms to fire. And it'll be pretty quick. We'll start with a couple isolated storms, again, on the southern end here through southern New York State, through the Finger Lakes, and even down into the Scranton area, the Catskills, and even into northern New Jersey. But things very quickly turn south this afternoon and evening. This is about 5 o'clock Eastern time, and notice, again, here they come. Here are those storms, those strong to severe storms developing over northern Ohio, specifically northeastern Ohio, and still some of those storms kind of rolling on through the Hudson River Valley of New York State. Now, eventually, all of this is going to kind of congeal together a little bit around sunset tonight. And here we go. A line of strong storms through much of central Ohio, all the way back into Pennsylvania and into northern New Jersey, with the main threats being strong straight line winds, some isolated hail, and also a couple embedded QLCS tornadoes are not out of the question here as that slowly moves southward, working on through Pittsburgh about 8 o'clock tonight. Same story through Harrisburg and Scranton about 8 o'clock. And again, just slowly rolling through the heart of Ohio as well, diving southwards towards that kind of Mason-Dixon line, I guess is what that is. Again, getting into about 9 o'clock tonight, and by the time we're hitting 10 o'clock, still dealing with some storms, even a couple strong ones up here into Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and still dealing with these strong storms from Ohio back into southwestern Pennsylvania. The good news is, by the time we get later into the overnight, about the midnight hour and after, these storms should begin to die down a little bit, although cannot rule out a couple rumbles of thunder left over here into southern Ohio with some of these storms. But the severe weather threat should slowly calm down outside of just still some damaging straight line winds. By the time we're waking up on Monday morning, all clear from severe weather. So that is the good news. One more model I will show you here, the High Resolution Rapid Refresh, again shows kind of the exact same scenario, but just want to show you we have some confidence here with multiple models. I will mention this model is a little bit later in the timing. The first model kind of developed this line of storms about 6, 7. This one waits until about 7, 8, 9 to really get this line going, and again, it's a little bit further north, so again, might not roll through Pittsburgh till about 10 or 11 with this kind of timing. Same story for Scranton, and also this model is a lot less severe on the storms in Ohio. It still shows that line of storms that, again, really keeps it more of a Pennsylvania problem than kind of anywhere else. So it'll be interesting to see how those two things line up. And again, we'll really just have to nowcast it from this point. So just kind of watching radar throughout the day and seeing what happens. But either way, if you're under that threat from the Storm Prediction Center, definitely make sure you're taking those precautions during the evening hours of today. All right, one more map here for the Northeast, the significant tornado parameter. Again, the tornado threat is not super high today, but I did want to mention nonetheless it is there. So again, getting into this evening, we are going to have a swath of ingredients for some of these storms to turn tornadic. Again, nothing off the chart here, but that 5% from Storm Prediction Center I think makes pretty good sense here, given the ingredients. So just know tornado warnings could be issued, not out of the question before, again, those ingredients die off pretty quickly after the sun begins to go down and we lose some of that instability. All right, that is the Northeast today. Let's talk about this storm that's supposed to bring weather, severe weather. Obviously, it is going to bring weather, but severe weather more importantly here through the central United States. So here we go. Monday afternoon, this is a big area of low pressure, kind of here in the mid-levels at about 500 millibars, and all connected to this big trough. And this is actually a new map from Pivotal Weather, which I love. This shows change in pressure at the 500 millibar level over a 12-hour period, and it does a beautiful job at just kind of showing how these troughs work. So again, obviously low pressure here in the center where these isobars are closed, but on the right hand side we have these kind of bluish colors, and then on the left hand side we have these more orange colors. And again, what this shows us is on the left side where we have those orange colors, there's generally sinking air, which causes nicer weather and high pressure, while on the right-hand side, those blue colors indicate more divergence aloft and also just more unsettled weather. So kind of just watching where this timing goes. This is Monday afternoon and eventually into overnight Monday. And look at how, again, these diverging ingredients really strengthen over sections of Kansas, Nebraska, and back into the Oklahoma and Texas panhandle as the storm cranks up. And again on Tuesday afternoon, working on in through Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, and into Nebraska, again bringing those ingredients for strong to severe storms, while on the backside, this convergence is actually also going to be bringing in some pretty big time dry air. So definitely a bit of a dry line setup here for you folks who are kind of familiar with that term. Again, going into Monday overnight and into Tuesday. And we could do it all again on Wednesday and even later into this week with potentially a secondary storm system kind of trying to develop here somewhere in maybe even anywhere from Canada all the way down towards the St. Louis area. Again, the models are still kind of all over the place here for later this week. But just know that the ingredients are there nonetheless. So we'll talk about that later on, but let's really focus on this first storm system. Now tomorrow, not much has changed from the Storm Prediction Center, and in fact, if anything, I would say this event has stayed about steady, if not maybe downtrended just a tad. I'll talk about why in just a moment. But still nonetheless an enhanced risk of severe storms from Oklahoma down through Texas tomorrow, with that slight risk extending all the way up even into South Dakota and back down into Texas. Another thing I want to mention that's new actually from the Storm Prediction Center and is new to me as well is this marginal risk of severe weather through the North Carolina-Virginia border tomorrow afternoon and evening. Again, Roanoke, Richmond, Blacksburg, Greensboro, Raleigh, even up into the Elizabeth City, the Hampton Roads, and the Virginia Beach area could see a couple strong storms tomorrow, including the threat of some strong straight line winds and hail with those. Now, taking a look at kind of the threat areas for tomorrow, wind outlook, again, it's definitely going to be prevalent with those storms out in the plains, also the ones into Virginia and North Carolina. Hail, same story. If anything, hail is the biggest threat probably tomorrow into the Great Plains. And I should add, when I say tomorrow, I really mean tomorrow night. The timing on this has really trended into the overnight hours of Monday, less of a Monday afternoon and evening time frame. But nonetheless, significant hail indicated by this black area on your map that's kind of shaded in, just indicating again that hail could be large enough to cause some real-time problems from Nebraska all the way down into Texas, and even again a small threat of hail here into southern Virginia as well, with some of those storms that try to get going tomorrow afternoon. Tornado threat tomorrow, a big area of 5% here through Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. Again, this makes sense, and I wouldn't be surprised to even see maybe a 10% area added somewhere here in between, and kind of, you know, they're given that general idea with just how big that 5% area is. So they could add that in tomorrow. Definitely would not be surprised to see that, but nonetheless, tornadoes also a threat tomorrow afternoon. Now Tuesday, we're going to do it all again, and if anything, honestly, I think Tuesday is going to be more of a I don't want to say impactful day, but maybe more in the news just because it's going to happen Tuesday afternoon compared to Monday where it's more of an overnight event. A lot of people are going to be sleeping. If you're not put under one of those warnings, you may have never had any idea that storms rolled on through. But Tuesday afternoon, we're going to have a big area of storms with an enhanced risk already being issued here from southern Iowa into northern Missouri. But again, that slight risk spreading all the way back down towards Texarkana, out towards sections of extreme western Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee, and again all the way back down into southern Louisiana. So storms going to be severe on Tuesday as well, and we'll do it again on Wednesday with kind of this super little baby area that the Storm Prediction Center has outlined from southern Indiana into much of central and western Kentucky there, and even into kind of the Nashville area. Could see some strong storms. And again, I wouldn't be surprised to see that area expanded a little bit on Wednesday. And I think even on Thursday and Friday, we could once again see severe weather, maybe even further down to the south. That's going to be a little bit more of a conditional threat and probably a little bit less of a tornado threat, more of just a hail and strong wind event. So again, don't let your guard down through the rest of this week as well, as these storms are going to slowly work eastbound, and we're going to have a lot of thunderstorm fuel here later in the week. Kind of earlier in the week, it's kind of a good matchup of those ingredients, but as we get into Thursday, Friday, and I guess Wednesday as well, it's looking a little bit more like maybe even a sort of a high cape, low shear event for portions of the southeast, at least in the early modeling, which is again a little out of the norm, especially for April. Normally we kind of flip the roles, it's the other way around. But we'll have to watch out for that. And again, I'll keep you updated as we get later into this week for all of our friends in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast. All right, very quickly talking about the storms in Virginia and North Carolina tomorrow. This is our latest run of the high-resolution rapid refresh model. And you'll notice, again, going into tomorrow afternoon, a couple storms firing up here along the Virginia-North Carolina border, even all the way back into kind of Kentucky, showing up here. And the main threats really will be straight line winds and some isolated hail. Tornado threat really just is not that high tomorrow, and I'll show you why if I just take a sounding over kind of, I guess, the Raleigh area as a whole. You'll notice this photograph is quite pitiful. Up on the top right of your screen, just not a whole lot of wind shear to work with tomorrow, but we could get just enough forcing combined with these very warm temperatures at the surface. Very impressive lapse rates here, just meaning temperature is decreasing very quickly with height. So that could lead to the formation of some hail and some strong straight line winds. With kind of this inverted V setup that you're seeing on our thermodynamic diagram. Oftentimes what happens here is, we'll get this precipitation form up here, and it'll kind of pull down that wind with it as you kind of crash the column and you have such a low wet bulb. Again, you could see very quick temperature changes with these setups, as well as, again, some of that wind threat. So definitely need to watch that. Watch out for that with any of these showers that do develop. Kind of similar to what we saw on Friday. If you remember that, we had some kind of almost surprise storms roll on through southeastern North Carolina that had very gusty winds. Very similar story, kind of with this setup here for our Monday afternoon. So definitely watching out for that. All right, discussing severe weather a little bit here into the Great Plains. We'll start in the southern Great Plains, and here we go. This is 6 p.m. tomorrow evening, and you'll notice, well, still not really all that many storms out and about. That changes, though. Again, though, quite late. This is until 1 in the morning Eastern time, or about midnight local time here on our latest NAM model. So again, nonetheless, storms do begin to develop, and anywhere from Kansas all the way down through the central and northern Texas could see some of these strong storms develop and continue throughout the overnight hours of Monday into Tuesday. Definitely bring some of that strong wind, some of that hail, and even a couple isolated tornadoes. But you'll notice, as soon as it started, it's kind of gone, and we're into Tuesday afternoon, and we're just kind of left with maybe some showers, through the region. So kind of, not that bullish of a model here for the severe weather threat tomorrow evening. A little bit of a different story, though, here up into the northern Great Plains. You'll notice this is 3 p.m. on Monday. We get into 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Here we go. Storms now developing a lot closer to that low pressure. So what is being indicated to me by this model is it's saying we might just be lacking some forcing down south, while to the north we could have that forcing a little bit earlier in the day. Again, while the sun is still out, strong storms could develop here into portions of Nebraska, including large hail, damaging winds, and a couple isolated tornadoes. And these continue well into the overnight, into these regions of Nebraska, South Dakota, even portions of Missouri, Iowa, overnight Monday and into our Tuesday morning here. Again, just this big area of thunderstorm activity from Iowa all the way back down into Missouri, and would slowly likely swing on through, again bringing that severe weather threat here even into Tuesday afternoon, as far out as this model goes. So again, not the biggest severe weather look on that model per se, but I do want you to know that this setup definitely has the capability to maybe become a little bit stronger than previously suggested by some of our models. So that same model that just showed not a lot of thunderstorm activity developing onto the south, well, if we look at our significant tornado parameter values, they're plenty high enough for strong storms, and including a couple isolated strong tornadoes from Nebraska all the way down. Well, I did not mean to take a sounding, sorry about that. But all the way down through Kansas and into Oklahoma and Texas. So you might be wondering, well, what gives here on the model? Well, if we take a look at a sounding here, this is a pretty common theme through much of the area here. Again, our hodographs are very supportive for tornadoes with that curving kind of shape and even that elongated shape. And in fact, winds out of the south are very much out of the southwest. Excuse me, winds at the surface, I should say, are very much out of the south and the southeast, rather. So again, that's definitely conducive for tornadic development, but what isn't so conducive here is this. In fact, we've got a bit of a warm nose aloft, or a cap in place, and oftentimes what this means is that those parcels want to rise, but then they get to a level that they just cannot quite get past. So one of two things could happen here, and this is very often what happens in the plains this time of year, is we get a boom or bust kind of scenario. Either this cap breaks and we get big time severe storms to develop overnight Monday, including the threat of tornadoes. In fact, look at these CAPE values. Well, you can't see them, but the CAPE values are about 3,000 joules per kilogram at the surface. Again, just to kind of shade it in for you, these are our CAPE area on your map there. Or your diagram, I guess. But again, as I was saying, sorry, back to the original point, either boom or bust. Either this cap breaks and all that CAPE is unleashed, all that wind energy is unleashed, or it stays just strong enough and storms might not really develop all that much in the southern part of that storm area. Again, I think it's a little more likely we see strong storms up into Nebraska and Kansas, right along that low pressure, where the forcing will be able to overcome that cap and kind of force these air parcels through it, and again, be able to tap into some of that instability. So again, a bit of a tougher forecast from Oklahoma and Texas, but feeling pretty confident in some strong storms in Nebraska and Kansas overnight tomorrow and into Tuesday. Now zooming this out a little bit for us, Tuesday afternoon, again, more strong to severe storms, and again, very similar to Monday here. Feeling confident we're going to have that forcing capabilities up here into the northern tier near that low pressure itself, but much less widespread severe weather to the south. Now, these storms that do form down here will definitely be capable of becoming very strong and severe, just a matter of can they really form? And again, if we take a sounding over Little Rock, for example, on our what day of the week is this? Let me think here. Tuesday. Again, we've got the ingredients here, and just at this point lacking a little bit of instability on this map at least. So again, just kind of similar things, and you'll even notice we kind of lose some of those lapse rates a little bit here in the mid-levels. So again, just not super conducive for maybe very super big time severe weather. Also not very conducive for tornadoes as well. LCL is really high here, so very high storm base, at least with this sounding on this model, which is our latest European model. So again, I think tornado threat will be highest Tuesday afternoon up here into Iowa and Missouri. And in fact, I'll even take a little sounding here ahead of some of these storms here into northern Missouri, just to kind of analyze it a little bit here. And yeah, again, LCL lower here, wind shear profile a little bit different, CAPE a little bit higher, but again, conducive enough for severe weather to be likely. And again, as I move this ahead further into time, that's Tuesday. Wednesday afternoon, again, another severe weather threat here. Maybe some storms into Indiana and into Kentucky, not out of the question. And maybe even down to the south a little bit more, going into our Thursday afternoon. So as I mentioned, I don't want you to let your guard down after Wednesday, because that first storm system, again, here it is, pulls north into Canada, but after it, another low pressure potentially developing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, our models are really all over the place with the second storm. But should it develop, could kind of ride through the southern tier of the country, bring some severe storms Friday, maybe even into the weekend with kind of a stronger push of moisture about a week out from now. So we'll definitely watch that. All right, overall just ingredients for kind of severe weather here. Tuesday afternoon from our European ensembles. Again, two separate areas, but the biggest area up here right along that low pressure from Iowa into Missouri. Lower areas kind of here into the central part of the severe threat from southern Missouri into northern Arkansas, and then another kind of bump up in ingredients here through the Texarkana area. That's Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday afternoon, or overnight Wednesday into Tuesday, that line moves eastbound. And again, Wednesday afternoon, those severe ingredients in that area, the Storm Prediction Center outlined, but also further to the south. So if you're not in that threat area right now, watch out. You might be in it by the time we get to Wednesday. And then again on Thursday afternoon, again, much lower probabilities before that next storm system tries to develop and potentially bring in higher threat for strong storms. over the southern tier of the country going into next weekend. Alrighty, so talked a good bit here about a lot of severe weather. Didn't go super in-depth, but again, just kind of the models are all over the place right now, and we'll do a lot more in-depth tomorrow, kind of day of the event, and then, throughout the following days where we have severe weather on those days. But with that said, again, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know in the comments, and I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I will see you all tomorrow.